Hello everyone, welcome to workshop 5 for the Blockathon DAO Metaverse Blockathon. Workshop 5 will be on Hacking Reactive NFTs with vilii, co-founder of KodaDot. A little bit about Blockathon DAO. Blockathon DAO is a learn-to-earn entrepreneurship education initiative who strive to provide opportunities for people entering the Web3 industry via two main mechanisms: by providing the ability for people to compete in competitions for prizes with curation of world-leading experts as mentors, with world-leading projects that we're partnered with, and also providing Web3 cryptopreneurs with the opportunity to complete bounties offered by our partner projects, where they can not only earn money by doing a piece of work, either via development or design, but also giving them the ability to make the first step in meeting people and building relationships in the Web3 industry. So with that, I would like to hand it over to Vicky for his presentation once again on hacking reactive NFTs.
Yeah, Lambda, thanks for the intro. Let's get started.
Cool. Cool.
Thanks for the intro. My name is Utval, and today we're gonna talk about the NFTs. What are the NFTs in general? So most people will say to you, if you have like normie friends outside of Web3, like it's like those price pictures stored on the blockchain, right? So they imagine that all the Bored Ape Club or the Pixelpunks or something like that, which is like a picture with just millions of dollars. But the truth is that the NFTs are basically bytes that represent the unique item in the blockchain. So back then we were hacking NFTs with the car sharing, so it represented the car or something like that. And often the NFTs comes with the JSON metadata stored on the either IPFS or ARI, and this metadata about various properties such as name, description, attribute, and all the other stuff. And most like the NFT marketplaces nowadays are using the OpenSea metadata standard because it's like, yeah, it was first and it actually works. There is like a ton of other metadata standards such as Engine, but yeah, OpenSea's one is the most used. And what are the modern approaches to use NFTs for? First, like it's a PFPs or profile pictures, and they are basically used to signal your wealth because nobody sees your Lambo when you are based in US. So like you post a picture of Lambo, it's nice, but when you are owning the Bored Ape, it actually shows that you are actually wealthy and it's sort of on chain, and also it creates the sense of belonging. So when you meet more people with the Bored Ape, it's higher chance that you share the similar values. Then with the NFTs, you can actually compose it. So when you have the actual game, so let's say World of Warcraft, you can have the NPC, which is like also which is item or warrior, which can have armor, which can have some sort of sword or something like that. And then when you compose it, you have the full warrior with the full armor set, and you can sell it as whole on the marketplace. Then with the NFTs, you can actually remix them. So there are a couple of startups which are doing with the audio, and with the remixing, you take two NFTs, for example, let's say music or the art, you remix it, close the remix on the marketplace. Once it's remixed, it's also linked to the original art, and you can get the royalties. The original authors can get actually the royalties, so it's sort of passive income. And then the actual value of NFTs are actually the utility. So for example, you can, using the non-fungible token, you can represent, for example, the car in the car sharing system, or you can use sort of discount code. The NFT can be used such as sort of utility token, or it can represent that you are sort of member of some club, and you can get discounts when you use your token, or authenticate yourself with the token. And also it can be used for LP positions. So as we've seen in the Uniswap SVG generator, it's actually super cool that you can generate SVG on chain with true on chain data. So similar to, for example, KodaDot as the open source marketplace, you can use the on chain meeting for example, Your Nft for some sort of commit of some sort of trophy. But something is still missing. So, for example, if you play the DeFi Kingdoms, like the game which is on chain, currently on Avalanche subnet, as I'm correct, when you are going through your fields and do mining or whatever, or cooking the fields, you still see your MetaMask popping up like crazy, and you have to approve this transaction, approve that transaction, and it's sort of annoying because you just want to enjoy the game and still having the sort of like bonus of having it decentralized. So one thing is to decrease the number of transactions there are people making. The second thing is like having developer flexibility for developers. What does it mean? That when we integrated, for example, the remark standard or the Basilisk one or either state mine, we've seen that their code is like super opinionated, so there is like no much flexibility for the developers to come up with the new use cases. So we are building like less opinionated code, and which like supports like more creative builders. So whatever you can build or think of, it should be possible. And then we are focusing on the programmable or personalized art. So based on like which wallet you use, so either you use Talisman or Bulk.js, the art can actually change the color, change the shape, and it encourages like more people to prefer some sort of wallets or sort of different addresses or having balance of like some sort of token. And okay, so what are reactive NFTs then? It's sort of the mental model that instead of making transactions, so instead of like clicking 10 times on your MetaMask, the NFT actually can update the state of itself. So what does it mean? So once, for example, the NFT is created, it can be also listed without need for you to like click 2 times on MetaMask. And it's like simpler and safer because it's validated on chain. And let's talk about this magic more. So we have 3 types of actually the reactivity. First is the conditional, so same as you have your smart home. So it's the same model, if this then that, then that. Then we have the hook enabled calls, which means that we are extending the existing calls with additional one. And then we have third, which is a token as an entity. So it means that NFT can have a balance and right. And first, conditional NFTs is like simple algorithms that can be evaluated either on chain or on the client side. And for example, based on the connected user or his wallet or current on-chain randomness, we can enable different functionality. So it means like if the NFT was owned by more than 5 people previously, then show no image because yeah, it's like overused. Everybody sees board ape like many times, so it makes a scarcity that you should not. You could try it, but it should have the limit for the NFT, and it's still stored like on the decentralized storage like IPFS, so nobody can change it. Then you have the hook enabled NFTs. So it was heavily inspired by Vue and React. And if you think of it, the NFT has a life cycle. So first it's created, then someone like transfer it, then you can list it, and at the end of the life of the NFT, you just burn it. With these life cycles, you can extend them with another like call. And for example, why we built on Substrate, it's like you can make multiple transactions. One, it's called batch, and you can use it in Substrate. It's super cool. But why don't you make like these two transactions, for example, create and list in one big batch? Because in Substrate you can have like super advanced functionality such as on-chain scheduler, and you don't want to expose it to the client actually because it can do a lot of harm. So you just want to use it just in this like NFT palette or this NFT logic. And with this, you can extend, for example, when the NFT is created, you can extend it with call for scheduled minting. So the chain will schedule the minting for you for later. So you don't need to like make alarm at 3 a.m. in the morning. So I mint it for people. It's done by on-chain. And also we can do lazy minting with this palette. So for example, you can have free minting when you have free space in the block. So you utilize the block by 100%. And as a bonus for a user, you can do it for free. Yeah, and hands up.
Yeah.
I want to ask, I know that because you are developing in Substrate, there is some terminology that is different to Ethereum or other networks. So when you're mentioning pallet-based hooks, could you just give like a super brief explanation for what are pallets in Substrate ecosystem?
Yeah, sure. So imagine pallets are like sort of blockchain plugins. So imagine like you have a USB with sort of like data or functionality. You just plug it into your computer, and it's same with the Substrate. So it's super modular. So you actually plug the functionality in the blockchain, and each like functionality is called the pallet. And yeah, the mental model behind the Substrate is like everything is pallet. So sort of the accounts or the balances are under the accounts pallet. So when you are developing, for example, the NFT functionality, you create the NFT palette, which has sort of function, which can change the state of the blockchain. And yeah, it can access other modules or palettes as well.
Pallets are smart contracts, are dApps?
It's a Rust code, which is plugged into the blockchain, and without the fork, you can upgrade your node with this code.
But being able to change the state of the blockchain and being able to call other functions,
yes,
kind of acting as a smart contract, right?
Yes. It's cool. And
interesting. Yeah.
And also actually the funny fact that the contracts are the palette also in the Substrate. So you have the contracts palette, which is executing the contracts logic. So like that's the thing behind. So we can do like whatever it's that's really cool, and that's why we are building on top of the Substrate. It's like super modular, and it's super powerful. So whatever can you imagine with the blockchain? Yeah, it's mostly possible in Substrate.
Cool. Thanks for this a bit of a tangential elaboration on Substrate. Cheers.
Yeah. And yeah, let's look at this graph. So for example, we see the life cycle of the NFT. So when NFT is created, and if you don't have any hook, you just finish the transaction. It's called an extrinsics in Substrate. And if you have any hook or additional call, you can pass the filter because you don't allow user to call like any call. For example, you have the sudo rights or the admin rights in the Substrate, and you don't want to expose it to the user. So if it can pass the filter, the call is executed, and if it's not, you just also finish the transaction and emit the additional event or call was just failed. And what's the best part of it? It's native, so you don't need to like do any special logic or change the Substrate code too much. And it's native either for pallets, like these modules, and you can simply extend any function. Like if you have a function in JavaScript or either, you just extend with the optional call. So you can have the call or you don't need to. And we can leverage the off-chain workers for like people who doesn't know Substrate. From this like palette, you can call the the price of the Kusama for the chain. So it's like super cool that you can build like another functionality, and you can use this like off-chain workers, for example, for generative art or for updating the IPFS data. And it also works for the smart contract, so either Solidity or Ink. And what you have to do basically is to create the reactive contract, which is a wrapper over the ERC721. So basically any existing NFT could be the reactive. That's like super cool, and why we are focusing on it. That you just you need to build any special EIP. You just use the ERC721 and use another functionality. And using the delegate calls, it's super simple to wrap it for the existing ERC721. And what are the potential use cases? First is scheduled minting on listing on chain. So using this palette, you can do that. Then the second thing is generative art, which can be used from the chain itself, from either smart contracts, pallets, or from the marketplace itself. And third one, you can update the off-chain state. So for example, in the context of car sharing, when your car crashes, you call the function that the car crashed, and you update the state of the IPFS that this car is crashed. And that was a brief intro. So don't forget to follow us on Twitter, and we are KodaDot, and my name is Wikio with one more A in the middle. Thank you, and let's move to the second part of the intro. And hope you see the screen.
Yep.
And let's do some code. So how to implement the reactive NFTs. And so what's the KodaDot in the first place? It's like the multi-chain and open source NFT marketplace, but as a public good for the Tsama. We have the multi-chain support, so we are supporting the Kusama currently, the state mine, which is a common with parachain, and the Basilisk, which is a parachain for the liquidity bootstrap protocol with liquidity mining and of course NFT marketplace with royalties, offers and auctions. And we are open source, so currently we have 190 forks, 265 stars and 70 plus contributors. And we are standard agnostic. So from pallets to contracts, we support them under one code base. So it's pretty cool. And what's the tech behind we use? You may be familiar with the Nfps, it's a framework on the top of the Vue.js. And it also follows the same idea of being open source and being community built. So that's what we really love. It's typically generated. That means that it's deployable from the Netlify to Cloudflare and also the IPFS. So basically it's a son of HTML file with JavaScript. We have sort of the backend, which are the indexers from Subquery, which is also sponsor of this Blockathon, and the Subscript that are exposing the GraphQL. And how does the indexers work? They go through all blocks and are checking for the functions that you are actually calling, or the events that you emitted from the smart contract or from the pallet. And then they read them, you process them through your custom code, and then you save them into the database. And using the GraphQL, you can fetch the data. So it's super simple and easy to use, and we follow the same architecture for every chain. So that's why you don't need to change too much for common screens like gallery list or list of collections. And then we have microservices, which are the Cloudflare workers for the critical part. So for example, pinning on the estuary, or pinning on Pinata, or just caching the images for better user experience. So we use Cloudflare workers for that, so we don't have any server which is running. So it's better for scalability and much safer. And then we have the libraries, so it's ton of NPM modules which you can use in in your code base, and it's everything under the KodaDot 1. And let's build a reactive marketplace. So what we'll gonna do today is a conditional rendering, and yeah, I would like to showcase you the library which we built like the last couple of weeks. And generative R, it's like high proof of concept. So today I would just go through the conditional rendering. And how does it look? It's basically a JSON logic stored on the IPFS, which can update the state of the NFT. So if you can look, this is like one rule which we use. And this means there's an equality sign, and these two things in this array. So it's like address, it's my address and Kusama, and these two things should be equal. And when they are equal, you want update the metadata to like this value. And it's super simple. It was super hard to write actually the whole library for that to be like type safe, and also like agnostic to any implementation. But the output looks like super simple. And what you can do with this, it's like you can use also the variables. So you don't need to statically write these two addresses by yourself, but you can do it by using variables. So your front end will read that you need the current owner, you need the issuer, and we'll provide it the data. So it's the same example as before. So if your variable current owner is equal to issuer, change the metadata to this value. And still, it looks super simple. And then we upgraded this code to work for the nested object. So if you have the metadata and you just want to change the image, not the whole metadata, because metadata can hold like various properties from the name, description, and other things. So you can just change the image. For example, if the owner is equal to issuer. So it's still simple and pretty easy to read. And what we're gonna use today is this type. It's like a NFT type I extracted from our marketplace. So that's what we actually really use. And this NFT has a block number, it's burned, it shows if it's burned, yes or not. It has some sort of current owner, so it's a address, then it has ID, issuer, so who created the art. Then we have the metadata, which is the IPFS string, as you've seen with the prefix IPFS, and yeah, the nonce. Then we have the name, then we have sort of price. Recipient is who is the recipient of the royalty. We have the royalty, which represents number from 0 to 100. We have sort of serial number, so it is a token ID when you imagine that in the context of ERC 721. And then we have the metadata, which is the JSON from the IPFS, so it has some description, name, and image. And let's really code something. So to add this conditional library, you just open your terminal, then do yarn add. It's at KodaDot 1 / if that. And our first example task is to set the new name of the NFT if the current owner is equal to his address, and the name should be changed to Hello Wiki at Blockathon. Am I muted?
No.
Or
I think it should be all good.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
I think you should be all good. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So how would I code it? It's super simple. So this is the same. And first we need to just import the library. It works out of everything is out of the box. So we import the type. If I call it if that, I don't have anything more creative. But if you have, feel free to make a PR. Everything is open source in our repository. And then we import the few functions. It's called AQ. It's for the equality. Then we have a build function, then it's GT, so it's greater than, and this LTE, so it's lower than or equal. And it's all from the KodaDot 1 / if that. And then I have some dummy data, which I imported from the package. And now let's apply these rules. So see, this is our constant new name. So it's the hello wiki at Blockathon. Then this is my address on the second line. And you see, we are making the if that variable. So it's the rule that if there is equal the NFT that current owner to like this address, then change the name to a new name. And if we apply these rules, so it's calling the build function with the array of if that, this build is taking the array, because you can have like multiple rules for like changing from name to metadata to whatever. And then you call it on top of the NFT, and what it returns you the new object of the NFT, so it's the same type of some NFT. And if you run the test, the result, the name, should be equal to like this new name. And we should expect that this NFT.name, which was the original name, should not be equal to the result.name. And the test passed. So feel free to try yourself. And let's go to the second task. And this would be like a bit harder. So I want to change the metadata if the current owner is not equal to wiki's address and the royalty is set for more than 26. So for example, if I buy the NFT and it should not be mine, that I want to change the metadata, so it can be the empty string. So if I open it on the KodaDot, I should not see anything because it was not for me. So it's like secret NFTs built on this like simple logic, and it's super nice and super clear to use. And the metadata should be changed to this string. So as you may know already right now, how it would look is like also 3 lines of code. So that's the power of our library. So you don't need to write a ton of repetitive stuff. You just focus on what you really need to build. And you import the same libraries. So the type of that non-equality, so not equal, then build, and actually we use lower than equal. So it's less than 26. And some data. So we also apply the rules. So we set the new meta for like the string. The address is still the same, and the rules. If you look closer to the first if that, the first argument in this array is the array itself. So it means that this current owner, the NFT current owner, should not be equal to this address, and the NFT royalty should be less than or equal to 26. And if both of these conditions are true, so we change the metadata to the new metadata. And we of course build it, so it's like same 2 lines of code, and we expect that the result, the metadata, should be equal to the new meta. And the power of conditional NFTs in like 2 lines of code. Also everything will be, the package is open source in KodaDot, and my slides are also the open source, so I'll share the links after the talk. And so how do you integrate it into your NFT? So if you are building on this hackathon right now, you probably want to do something with this. And let's make a simple rule for that. Also, I just import the library and write the rule. So if that, and you have to provide the type. This is the power of the library, how it's written, that it's type safe. So if you provide the type, it will tell you like which variables can you use actually, and which you can use here, and which like what keys can you change from metadata to the nested objects, like whatever. So it's like super safe when you provide type. And this rule is basically super simple also. It's called equality. And this SOR means it's this current owner should be treated as a variable, as we've seen like a couple of slides before. And also the issuer should be treated as a variable. So when the variable current owner and the issuer are equal, then change the metadata to something new. And this logic basically, what's this if that constant is an array with this JSON metadata. So you connect it to your JSON, upload it to your IPFS, and when you read the metadata, I store it under the logic attribute, and yeah, you just check if it contains the logic field, and if it does, you can use the logic and update the state of the NFT. So the JSON result, which I uploaded for testing, is also, I have name, description, this image, external URL, then I have the type of the NFT, and this is the logic. And as you see, this is the result of this rule, of this equality rule, and this is how it looks in the JSON. So once I check the NFT metadata contains the logic, I just call the build function from KodaDot1 / if that, and I provide the current NFT which I want to change, and it returns me the new object. And where to test this, the KodaDot has the sandbox testing, which is currently on PR, so it should be merged like today. And yeah, looking forward to hear from you. And yeah, so regarding to the links, this package is under the KodaDot GitHub's KodaDot. I'll share it here in the chat.
I'll also put the links in the video description of our YouTube once we upload this recording. So just letting everyone know.
Yeah, so here are the packages. So if that library is here, see it was like last test I wrote like, I don't know, 13 hours ago. So to be like properly sure that it works with also the nested object and all the fun stuff. So here is the repository, and you just install it from the npm.js. So here is the link for the packages. To the sandbox, it's NFT gallery. It's our main repo. So everything is going on here. So if you would like to hack on top of our gallery, feel free. We have like ton of bounties for that, which are labeled with $, or more dollars. It means like how can you get for the bounty. So if you don't know what to build, just throw the KodaDot and build something cool. And if it's suitable for the bounty, we would love to support you, of course. So this is our main repo, and there is a branch for the sandbox. So it should be updated also today. And yeah, I share this. And for this presentation, I have like a repository. It's a wikibal /slides, and you can see the slides here. It should be a Blockathon. Cool. So yeah, everything is open source, as we market ourselves as open source wizard. I love to build on like everything open source, so you can share your knowledge. It's the crucial part of learning. So yeah, help others to grow. So yeah, do you have like any questions to the conditional NFTs? It's like easy to build, and yeah, feel free to for KodaDot for that. But if you have your own front end, I would love to see the KodaDot packages in a while.
Thanks so much, Vicky, for your talk. Yeah, we'll just leave any space at the moment now for anyone who has questions before I get into some of the questions and comments that I have. So we'll just give a few seconds for people to ask.
I also have some questions. So just for clarity and understanding, the rationale, if I'm reading correctly, is that currently NFTs are kind of static, and then if we were to introduce all those conditional ways or development framework to create conditional rules, we can create much more interactive applications for NFTs. And then basically those are the examples that you show. Is that fair, like, way of observing?
Yes, that's correct. My favorite quote is like, can devs do something from the Twitter or like any project? So my idea basically in one way is like, can NFTs do something? So that's the point of reactivity to like, please NFT do something. So based on these rules, like if it's conditional, if it's reactive, you don't need to do anything specifically. The NFT can do it instead of you. So basically, if you see this today, the conditional NFTs is a logic which is stored on chain. It's safe to use, and yeah, when the current owner is not the person you actually like, or you just don't want them to show it, you just using this logic and using the correct marketplace, you don't need to show any image. You can change the description. So for example, for my birthday, I got the NFT on the KodaDot from my friend, and what the conditional logic can do, if it can show the description like happy birthday wiki just for me, if the current owner is me, for example. So it interacts more with the current environment, so it could be more personalized. So another example could be that if you are using Talisman, you just want to show this NFT only for the person who is using the Talisman wallet. Actually, you can build it with this library.
Yeah, there's one kind of like instant use case of reactive NFTs that just sparks my mind as soon as you like start talking about it, is like in gaming. Like, so we had Loot come out in August last year. It obviously grew rapidly in its usage, etc. And if people aren't aware, Loot is basically just images, just basically NFTs, which is basically a black image with white writing on it, right? But then in the metadata, of course, there's characteristics, right? And I'm pretty sure, I don't know if Loot was ERC721 or ERC1155, but I do know at the end that people were actually selling components of the Loot bags. Like there was the Divine Robe, which was exceedingly rare within loot bags, and people weren't selling like the entire loot. They're only selling categories of one particular loot bag. But anyway, the point I'm trying to get at is, that's kind of like NFTs and NFTs, like nested NFTs, but with the reactive NFTs, which is of course kind of like observing off-chain data and then incorporating it according to your conditional statements, is imagine you're in an RPG and you got a sword and you're using it, right? And as over time your sword gets damaged, right? So imagine there's 5 categories of damage of the sword, and as you're playing, damage accrues, and then the NFT actually gets updated, right? So you can imagine a new sword, you buy it on a digital marketplace to play your game, costs you whatever, and it gets damaged. It's worth less. There's more swords out there that are more damaged. And if you keep on using it and it breaks, it's not worth it much. You have to get repaired. You know what I mean? So you got like this kind of like granular like details in games. You can imagine, I mean, there'd be infinite examples, right? You could drink a potion or something, right? Whatever, right?
Yeah.
So like this to me like rings instantly as like the most perfect use case. Of course, there's many others. Of course, when you look at art, for example, it depends what kind of art, but like you think about high art, for example, it maybe reactive NFTs, like it might not be, like the value decreases per change in owner, but it might be something else. But I think gaming in particular for reactive NFTs would be absolutely incredible, and I think it's absolutely going to happen. So yeah, that was just like a main comment I had.
Got another idea for yours, and that, for example, you can use the reactive NFT like this logic. For
Yeah.
example, you've got a sword, and when you are under level, I don't know, 85, you can't use it, and it's the same example that you just check the equality of your player level and the minimum level that your swords have, and yeah, if it's good to go, that it returns you, yeah, you can equip that. That's possible.
Yeah.
And that's super cool.
Yeah.
Regarding to the generate your art, one guy is actually helping us on this hackathon, and he built a proof of concept for generative art using the V5GS. It's a library for like art or code processing original, and yeah, the art changes based on the address you provide in the URL. So
Cool.
yeah, don't inviting you to join our Discord at like KodaDot. It's a discord.gg/KodaDot.
Yeah.
I'll share the link or shall share the invite. And yeah, he built it with the P5GS. It's uploaded on the IPFS. And when you provide the URL parameters, the art changes like a simple triangle, but yeah, it changes accordingly. If I provide mine's address or someone else, it just changes. And when I add more entropy, for example, the current block number, I can update using the UI. I can update the block number instantly because I can subscribe to the current block. And you just see on the marketplace the art changes.
Yes.
And when you are owner, you can freeze it and save it. And that's like one use actually.
It's extraordinary. I mean, I guess the possibilities are endless. Really,
Yeah.
it's unbounded. Really,
Yeah, that's why I love that people are making hackathons and inviting more people into Web3 because there is like a lot of nice ideas around. And we just need to like catch them and support them. And build a better worlds.
Yes, 100%. It's even like when you look about the other experiments that have been made with NFTs, such as fractionalizing NFTs, using NFTs as collateral, there's commentary on soul-bound NFTs, recently, right? Like, you have all these different experiments being done, like composable things you can do with NFTs, and they're going to have their own experiments, and then you're going to be able to combine the experiments together, right? So like, you could have something like a non-transferable NFT, which is the soulbound NFT, but there could be a reactive NFT, which updates according to the environment, right? So even though you can't transfer it, it's going to react to the environment. So I guess then the next challenge is, then what is the oracle that's going to perceive the environment? That's like the attack vector that you have to manage for, right? Which is a problem, especially if it's soul-bound, right? But you get the point that I'm making though. Like, you can start really merging all the other experiments being done together, and it's just like, we need to identify the layers that have been built, reflex, then build the next layers, and to keep on reflecting and see what sticks, And so it's like, we just at the start of the experimentation, and this is going to continue on for the next 5 to 10 years until things like settle out, So that's why like having the foundations of open source, really driving anyone to be able to participate, with the boundaries that you provide, etc. Like that, having that as a foundational principle is going to allow for, that process of experimentation to happen out properly. So I guess it's just more of a comment. It's very exciting though.
I was thinking actually today about soulbound NFTs and what the reactivity because you can transfer them. But when you have these like additional hooks, which we showed in the palette, you can basically say in that like additional call when the NFT is created, you can say the transfer. It's non-transferable, but since it is like additional call,
Yeah.
you just transfer it once and then lock forever in your account.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's like having this like code being like agnostic and being less opinionated about stuff. You can build like whatever use case. You just have to think about it and then code it if it's possible.
Absolutely.
Because most like stuff around is like super opinionated around things, which is cool. Like you are building like great niche use case, but when you are building common good, it should be like more less opinionated, more like open to the more creative ideas.
Yeah. There's
Actually, maybe on the soulbound NFTs. So I'm wondering something that came to our mind when you were showing the concept of the reactive NFTs and suggesting to fork KodaDot as an example. So, are you thinking like forking KodaDot to implement the reactive NFT like type of what people would wish? Was that what you were thinking of?
Yeah, that's the thing that if the code is open source, like there are a lot of components ready, so you can just focus on your own logic. There's like the whole stack ready for you to be used. So whatever you just upload to the IPFS and the logic you provide, the UI itself can like integrate it. That's what the sandbox is for. We just created the fake gallery detail or the detail of the NFT, and when you provide the hash from your IPFS, the UI will show you like how would it look like on when you mint it. That's the goal of the sandbox. So first is like this the conditional logic. So when you provide your IPFS with the logic, it checks if it contains like this logic array and updates accordingly, and also with the reactive NFTs, like the hooks, it has to be evaluated, so it's like harder to make in sandbox, but definitely possible.
Yeah, would be really keen to actually explore using NFTs as badges for participation in Blockathon, for example, in workshops, winning prizes, stuff like that. So kind of like FOD.
FOD on the summer. Yeah. I actually heard this idea like third time this week, so I'm kind of hyped to implement it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we discussed it with Silodron as well, and she gave a workshop a couple of days ago.
Yeah, I've seen that. Wow.
I think probably Paul have like a million questions, but maybe if anyone else has questions, so we don't dominate the session.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we can go on.
Yeah.
Anyone else has questions? Eitan, Mahmoud, Self-Stimula, Mandela, Akash. Crickets.
People like the content.
Yeah. I guess maybe in that case, if you're thinking of implementing it, and we already heard about it third time this week, we should really explore that discussion about soulbound badges or traits that are given, like NFT soulbound, as progress in your entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah, there's one kind of comment on having that, and I think I'm on the right track on my thought process here. You know, see, you have technically a non-transfer NFT, so technically the NFT is going to be representing of data specific to you individually, the guard identity. It could be anon, could be not, depending on the scope. The kind of comment I have is like, especially if you're using reactive NFTs to update the NFT data, I guess if it's pertinent only to you, then I guess you could be the arbitrager of truth in determining what off-chain data is used, right, for the conditional statements, right? But I don't know what particular examples this might be, but what if there's an example where consensus needs to be made on what happened off-chain to onboard the data? Like, you need like an oracle set, because we're basically trusting the person to onboard the off-chain charter, and they're the ones that have the authority, right, to move it, right? And is that always the case where we just designate an authority and then that person or entity would just just transmit the data, or other examples or situations where broad consensus need to be made on what actually happened? I guess, you get what I'm saying?
Can I rephrase it? So you are basically asking if you, for example, create a soulbound NFT with a sort of logic,
Yeah.
and then someone decides to like update the metadata using like sort of the other function and remove the logic from the IPFS, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that could be like a ASIC vector. Good idea. I should note it down to like cover this use case or edge case. That's why we are doing research in this field,
Yeah.
like what's possible and what you can do. That's what the actually case of the delegate calling the solidity. That it's like super safe function to use, but if you use it the incorrect way, you can make a re-entrancy attack, right? So it's maybe the same approach. Like it's safe until it's not.
Yeah, 100%. And I guess it's super experimental. Yeah. What is your opinion on soul-based NFTs? Like outside of just how the tech works, like I think it's an interesting concept. It's going to be amazing experimentation.
Soulbound, I heard about that like first time 2016.
Yeah.
Like University of Nicosia was like issuing the university certificates on the Bitcoin, I think.
Yeah.
As sort of like string in the chain, so you can provide the DAU or the MSC from us.
Yeah.
And it's like a nice concept on chain actually with the digital identity. I saw with the guy here in Split about having digital identity. So if your actually certificate which is non-transferable because you earn it by yourself. Has sort of the DID, so it's like easy searchable for like people out there. Actually, in Web3 you don't need any school because it's about like what you are building. But in the Web2 people are like sort of keen on the having sort of the university degree, so it's easily you can easily prove this person really made the school, been in this job or something like that. So I think there's a huge potential, and also I see the parallel with the challenges or achievements in the game when you are playing the games. For example, Skyrim.
Yeah.
Then I was really like keen on getting this sort of achievements because it's like it hooks you up more for the game.
Yeah.
And it's sort of fun to get some of them. So having like sort of personal achievement either in like on-chain games or like personal life.
Yeah.
And having in blockchain, so you can then have your wall of fame. Like I earned this, and then you just you use. That's nice thing about the Web3 as the Lego. So you compose it. So now you have wall of fame. You have own NFTs. You have like this all of the metadata, and then you put it into 3D your virtual space. So like see my achievement in this like virtual space. It should be nice. Then you can click on it. See what's about. Lovely to see like more use cases for that. So with the blocks. That now I think the blocks are transferable, right? You can transfer it to another address. Having bounded or sort of under one multisig, it could be also really nice.
Yeah. Um, I got a few more comments before we probably wrap up. One is really interesting with your comment with regards to, I guess very simply, just like putting a string into Bitcoin, which then basically verifies, for example, a degree, right, with a university or whatever. It's very interesting to see how the experimental fever actually originally happened and was created via the innovation through Bitcoin. And then, of course, now due to the very limited scripting language of Bitcoin, went all the experimental fever went to obviously true and complete languages like Ethereum, and now obviously now happening to other chains. But I guess a comment I'd like to make is that it's just so fascinating to see how the Bitcoin community is so against almost experimentation when in fact it all started on Bitcoin. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like the perception of what Bitcoin is has been dramatically morphed on something that, that's almost like anti-experimentation, which is such an issue. So it's very interesting that where you made that point, because I don't think like the Bitcoin ecosystem needs to be like that. And I guess it's also just a comment. I know it's kind of out of the scope of this workshop. It's just a comment on like how kind of ecosystem narratives change and morph and play out. You know what I mean? Like, it's such a strange. And then you have like vested interest in these ecosystems that are doing it. You know what I mean? So there's just a comment on that. Yeah, I probably don't have. I could talk on for hours, but
let's say that let's say some people are more conservative, some more people are more
sure.
experimental. So yeah, whatever serves you. If you are like, let's more conservative, so Bitcoin maybe will
Exactly
be more
right.
for you.
Yeah.
You should learn about Bitcoin in depth like a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Because the first I've been doing with the blockchain was like Ethereum, and it was like super cool. There's smart contracts, ERC tokens, and building on that was like super cool because for me Bitcoin you can do much, right?
You can't do much, yeah.
Just like you can buy pizza and everybody will be hyped on that for the next 10, 11 years, right?
Yeah, exactly right. And then that's not much, yeah.
So
Yeah.
but having a conservative opinion about the like decentralized ledger, why not?
Yeah. Just one more comment. I guess there's multiple ways you look at it, but I'm super keen to see the multi-chain and then the cross-chain ecosystems come out. And of course, Polkadot is kind of like quite focused on that. With regards to, I mean, many sectors of Web3, but NFTs in gaming, cross-chain, I'm like really bullish on. Now, it depends where you come from. If you're an ETH maxi, you think that all L1s make no sense, and you think that everything should be L2 EVM, right? Like all L1 EVMs will eventually go L2. That's their motto, right? So they think it's all ETH centric. But regardless, I'm super bullish on like seamless cross-chain integration for NFTs. So like you can have an identity and pop into multiple games, and maybe like a game developer develop their own kind of L2, you know what I mean? Or works, but the NFTs are transferable, so you can have like one identity and pop in and out. I'm very interested to see that happen, and I think it will happen. How it plays out though, who knows? But I'm super bullish on that. I think it's gonna be incredible.
Yeah, me either. Actually the goal of the parachain and the substrate or the Blockathon ecosystem is the parachains are super optimized for like such the special or niche use case.
Yeah.
So I see that, for example, having the parachain for gaming and open metaverses to like be the store of the value or the store of the value. But when you decide like, okay, this, for example, sword in this game, I need to sell it, or just I need to borrow some stablecoin from a Kala, you transfer it to another parachain which is optimized for lending and borrowing. Then from the another parachain which is a Kala, you borrow its stablecoin, and then from all the multi-chain you meet in one other chain for lending and borrowing.
Yeah.
And do the trade.
Yeah.
So I'm also bullish for that.
It's gonna be wild. It's gonna be super exciting.
And you don't need to. And one more comment: you don't need to like care about the implementation. That's the goal of the ECM. It's like super verbose protocol. I played with it like a few weeks ago. with a friend, and yeah, it's like this huge like query you need to make for the XTM. It's like super huge, like I don't know, 30-40 lines of code to just execute the token transfer. But since it is super verbose, then you don't need to care about the implementation on the other side. If it supports the non-fungible token, it just accept it, and then you can do whatever with it.
Yeah, it's just starting. Like, I think we've passed the other side. Like, you know, you're around 4 years ago. You know, things were critics in the bear market, and I think this bear market's gonna look a lot different. I think that a lot of building's gonna be happening. So I'm super excited to see what's gonna pop out in the next few years. So,
Yeah, likewise.
yeah, cool. So I think we'll wrap up this call. Thank you so much, Vicky, for for your content on Reactive NFTs and for your walkthrough. Thanks for the links. We'll be posting those links in the description of the YouTube channel. So I might give a few seconds to give people one last chance to ask any questions or have any comments, and if none, then we'll wrap it up.
Also, thanks for the invite. It was lovely to chat about that and about the progress since like we sketched the idea, I think it was a month ago in the abstract. So yeah, I love to see the iteration from the idea or the specific general concept to like something like library working and then building on top of that. So
absolutely,
yeah, lovely to see the progress of the development.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys do incredible work, and the developer community is growing rapidly. It's so great to see. Cool. Thank you, Vicky Val.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. See everyone.
Yeah. Bye bye.
Bye bye.